this bike has been into so much. That nut is just all chewed up, and the end of the axle bolt is mushroomed. I've actually got my Sawzall out so I can cut just the bitter end of that off, and then I have nut rethreaders that I'm going to run on that to rethread that before I try to back that nut off. Alright, there you go. It's kind of hard to read, but these are multi-size metric rethreader dies, and that's what their job is. Their job is to rethread. So we're going to be taking the 10 millimeter or the 10M, and that's the one that we need to rethread once I cut the boogered up part off of there. So we'll take this, screw that on so that we can clean the threads before taking that nut off. We don't want to do it after, because we can strip the threads on the nut as we're backing it off if we've got really chewed up threads here. So I'll show you that. Alright gang, we're still on part 2 on the KLX 110, and I've got a Harbor Freight gripe, a big one, because for the very first time I am using my Pittsburgh Automotive 20-ton low profile bottle jack. Can you see what's going on here? You see this? First time I've used it. Alright, Harbor Freight, you failed on that one. It's got a bad seal at the top. That's aggravating. That's alright. Just wanted to show you guys we have a failed, and it wasn't cheap. That's really aggravating. Alright, enough of that. Let's get back to this. I cut the end off, just the bitter end, not very much, just a tiny little piece. You can see right there, just a little bit. We've got to do just a little bit of gentle filing right there on the bottom to get that cleaned up, and then we can run that dye over it. So stay tuned. I apologize guys, I totally spaced turning the camera on to show you running that on there. It's essentially like starting a tap, or excuse me, a die. So anyway, we got that done, and we got the nut off of there. Now we've got to get the shaft out. Suppose I can get this off this side. Now just tap her through. Alright, it's going to go through nice and easy. It's 15 years old, so I mean it doesn't surprise me that some people have been into it before. As old as it is, it would have needed some attention and love over the years. Of course, you know, love, I use that term loosely. There goes the bike. Alright, it's still safe. I'll just leave that for the moment. We've got the front tire off. I didn't have it strapped in a good spot apparently. Well, we've got the wheel off, and this drum here looks really good. I don't know how well that's showing up, but this drum is in real good shape. We'll check the bearings, check the spokes. Loose spoke there. But again, we'll pop the tire off and we will true the rim, check and see how true the rim is, and make sure that it's in pretty good shape. But the next thing to come off will be the forks, which are up here. I wanted to show you guys something on one of the forks, and what in the world they were doing, I have no clue. But look how much that is mushroomed out from being beat on. Why was that beat on so hard? I just don't get it. That doesn't make sense to me. Let's look what we've got here. We're at about half on these. So I'll check with Andy and see if he wants me to replace those. Alright, well, we got a bunch of stuff missing from the front of this thing now. I got the fork tubes off, and I want you guys to see this, if you can see. You see how it's bumping and stopping, bumping and stopping. Bearings in the headstock have an issue. Hopefully it's just because it's too tight. We'll see. It's quickly becoming a money pit. Supposedly the previous owner put a lot of work into it and rebuilt the engine that leaks like a sieve. And I feel so sorry for Andy. This is Andy of Greenworks Conquest fame. That's where this came from. You guys might remember. And I've got another really beautiful thing to show you guys here, and that is the bottom of the shocks. Somebody was going for the hammered look. See how badly those were beaten? Oh, some people. You need no hammers to get these apart to replace the seals. You take the snap rings out here, you compress them and pull them, compress them and pull them, and they pull apart from the top after you take the bolts out. Why would somebody be hammering on the bottom of those shocks? Absolutely no reason whatsoever for anyone to have ever needed to pound on the bottoms of those shocks. So we're still moving forward. I contacted Andy to make sure that we were still a go and that we were still okay to keep on keeping on with it. And so far, so good. And Andy said, I am done with buying used. From now on, I'm just going to buy new. And I can't say as I blame you, Andy. Not one bit. Can't say as I blame you at all. Still have to do a little bit of tweaking on the back brake. But anyway, we are really, really hoping, with our fingers crossed, that our oil leak is just in the oil filter and not in the case. Someone has been in the side of the engine. I'll show you. Just happen to have a flashlight close by. You can always tell when somebody's been into something because they don't know about the Japanese industrial standard screws. You can see how tore up the screw heads are. Get this bottom one here, maybe. You see how tore up they are? That's why you need the Japanese industrial standard screwdrivers, because standard screwdrivers do not get the job done right. Well, and we can even see here, we've got evidence up here and down here as well, where things have been mucked with. Supposedly the previous owner was a mechanic and he rebuilt this engine. Fingers crossed that he didn't do anything horribly wrong to it. I took a moment to look up the sale value on this, and it's 2003, so it's 15 years old. And one in excellent condition, mind you, that is with a E, excellent, not a A for average. This one I would consider fair to average is $715. It was purchased for just a little over half of that amount, and the repairs to it are going to exceed the actual value of the bike. But on the bright side, when the bike is done, it's going to be kept for a long time. So keeping that in mind, I would say that the venture is worth it for Andy and his son. And keep it for a good long while and recoup most of their money out of it, providing Andy's son isn't super hard on it and crashes it a lot and whatnot. But alright, so that's where we're at. We're at this massively stripped down. See, I went hell's bells, bought me a motorcycle lift and just went to town, didn't I? I was just really dreading doing this on the floor or on my fold-out table. So having the lift, beauty, absolute beauty. We've got to get the forks tore apart and get new seals put in. And another issue with the one that's leaking, this one's okay. If you look here, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it. You can see it. See that dent? There's dents all the way around this fork tube. Fortunately, down where the shock actually has its motion, there are no dents, but that still screws up the structural integrity of that shock, the shock upper. I have no clue what they did, but they hit something a lot harder than was first imagined. You can see that's a big whoops right there, a really big whoops. I'm going to run a gauge down this part of the shock to make sure that part of the shock is okay. At this point, we are just trying to save the bike so that it can be used for a few more years. And Andy, buddy, I truly apologize for, I guess I could just say your luck with this and your luck with Greenworks. And I agree with you. I think it's best you either give old Zippo a call to go look at stuff with you, or go buy new. That way you know that you're in good shape. So I'm a little disheartened. It sucks for Andy. I know it sucks for Andy. And I cut him a big break on the Conquest because of all the issues that were wrong with it. And I've pretty well locked in what I'm going to charge on labor on this now too, pending any other major issues. So we're just going to have to keep an eye on things and see where we end up. But sometimes this is what you run into. You buy something secondhand and don't go over it with a fine-tooth comb, and you end up with a potential money pit. And this one has certainly fits that bill. If you would have taken it to a Kawasaki dealership, he would, oh wow, I can't even imagine. It would be a hefty bill. So, but anyway, all right, I'm gonna close it out. This is gonna round it out for part 2 of the Kawasaki KLX 110. We've got our work cut out for us. Part 3, we'll tear the shocks apart. I'm going to order spokes and order brake shoes. The brake shoes on the front need replaced. The ones on the back are okay. Our dampeners are okay on that. They can live for a little while longer. Then we will, after we get everything ordered and get everything done that we can get done, then we're going to tear into the engine and see if we can't find where that oil leak is coming from. And all I'm going to do that is pressurize the crankcase and watch for oil coming out of the crankcase. So there'll be a little bit of trickery there. I'm just going to use the spark plug hole with both valves closed and introduce some pressure in there and see if we can't get the oil to present itself on where it's coming out. So you guys get to stay tuned for that too. Quite a bit more to do here. So as we go through it, we will continue this series. But for now, thus ends part 2. If you would please click my smiling little face if you're not already subscribed, and then hit the bell icon to be notified whenever I post a video. Over here is part 1. Over here is a video, just a random video. We'll see you guys on the next one. Later, I'm out.